good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. We're going to talk about three important issues tonight. First up, I want to focus on the concerns that are now increasing about the vulnerability of our children towards the COVID pandemic. Now, while we are tackling the second wave, already conversations about the third wave have begun. There were certain experts that spoke about children being more vulnerable then, which prompted many questions to be asked of the government as well. Now, yesterday the government actually said that there isn't any evidence to suggest the third wave will be more serious for children. But of course, precautions have to be maintained. Now, let me tell you why some of the experts believe we have to watch out for this trend and protect them or take further steps to do that. Firstly, children are not eligible for vaccination yet. So while adults are getting their protective shield, children aren't. And so adults who begin to emerge out of their homes post the second wave and the lockdown may become carriers of this virus, thus exposing children who might be at home but don't have any which ways the vaccine protection. Then there is the issue of examination, which right now is being discussed. To what extent can it be postponed? But if they step out for that, that becomes a bigger threat. Experts say virus also looks for a newer host, and that thereby it could be children become more vulnerable. And of course, one thing is for sure, we really don't know how these strains are evolving. So actually there is little to say right now about the next wave or after that or what happens in a few months from now. Because the virus is evolving, our understanding of it is rules and regulations, science, explanations, how to deal with it, all of it constantly evolves and changes. But let me tell you what the states are beginning to do. For example, in Delhi, they've already set up a special task force to look into the plan to protect children. They've decided that they need to allocate special beds, plan for oxygen, better management of medicines for the third wave. In Karnataka, pediatric COVID centers will be set up in all districts. Rehabilitation centers are also being set up for orphans, kids who've lost both their parents in this pandemic. Maharashtra, the Mumbai civic body has planned a pediatric COVID care. Creche are being planned for children whose parents may actually get COVID and are then infected and hospitalized. Osmanabad has formed a task force specifically for children as well. And the state task force is actually also thinking about flu shots for children to protect them. In Uttar Pradesh, they have planned to vaccinate the parents of children under the age of 10, and they are planning to also set up at least 100 pediatric beds in every district. So all of this is still in planning stage for most of the states. But here is what AIIMS director said yesterday in the government news briefing when a question was asked, that there hasn't been any significant rise in infection when it comes to children. If you look at the data from the first wave and the second wave, it's largely being the same. The data shows children got mild infection. The hypothesis says virus enters through ACE receptors, and ACE receptors are lesser in children than adults. And so far, there isn't any evidence to suggest large number of serious infections amongst children. And hence, there is no evidence to suggest the third wave may be a bigger concern. That being said, let's understand on nuances, what various experts are saying and how we should really read this and analyze it. I say good evening to Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dean Indian College of Physicians at Lilavati, is member of the COVID-19 task force in Maharashtra. Dr. Ravi, virologist, retired professor and head of virology at NIMHANS, member of the COVID-19 task force in Karnataka. Dr. Naveen Thakur, President-elect at International Pediatric Association, also joining us this evening. Let me start off with Dr. Shashank Joshi. Dr. Joshi, what is your own reading and what's the research data available right now to in terms of children and their vulnerability to COVID now?
So, Tanvi, couple of things. First thing is that compared to the first wave, in the second wave, we had a significantly disproportionate number of children, both below 10 and between 10 to 20 affected. So that data, at least in the state of Maharashtra, is in public domain and is available. So there has been an exponential rise, 3 to 8-fold rise in it. And even as we talk today, in Kolhapur, in Aurangabad, the children's pediatric wards are full with COVID, even today as we talk. So that data is clear cut. Number two is in times to come, we know that as we saturate the senior citizen population, people above 45 with vaccination, and a larger proportion is exposed, the less exposed population is more likely to get the wave. So though there is a drop by a decade in the current wave, the current wave is far from being over across India. Though it is showing signs of plateauing, still the numbers are pretty large in this wave. And therefore, to say that there will be a pediatric wave, the answer is probably yes. Will it be having a critical magnitude for us to get worried and panic? The answer is no. It is unlikely to hit the children because children by and large have their own immune apparatus, particularly below 10, they have thymus. They are able to handle and clear viruses better. Unfortunately, if the immune system fails, which can happen in a small percentage of children, then they are vulnerable to get a multi-system infection, which can be pretty alarming. And that is something for which we need to be prepared. Unfortunately, across India, we have only 2,000 pediatric intensive care beds and neonatal intensive care beds. That's a very, very small number. India is a young country. 45% of the Indian population is young. So we are not just concerned about pediatrics, but we are concerned about people between 0 and 30 years of age. Because if you see the first wave, it was predominantly people above 50. If you see the second wave, which is still going on, it is predominantly people at 40, 50 and 60 which have been most hit. And we have seen younger people at 20s and 30s also being affected. So our worry is those children between 10 to 20, which are likely to get the brunt of this wave. And we also know that the vaccinations, nobody is eligible below 18 years of age. So there are definite concerns. It is better to be more proactive and be prepared, sensitize the community, sensitize the pediatricians, and ensure that they are fully ready if and when it happens, that things can be ordered rather than caught napping. So though the government of India may have said that there is no cause for alarm, I would not agree to it based on data from Maharashtra at least, that currently we clearly are seeing a disproportionate rise in this population, and at least in the public health spaces like Kolhapur, Aurangabad, including Pune, the wards are full in the pediatric space, which was not full in the first space at all, or the first wave at all. So clearly we have to be ready. We have to be prepared. If it doesn't come, it is okay. But we should not be caught napping. And obviously, when we have poor critical care infrastructure in that subgroup, and God forbid, if there is a large proportion of children which fall and become critical, then we should we will not be able to build capacities. We have now 3 to 6 months to build those capacities. It is better to be wise and make that infrastructure more robust in the pediatric critical care space, so that if there is any eventuality, that can be done. Also, the pediatricians in the state of Maharashtra, which is a large proportion in their academy, will be also are undergoing some training programs, capacity building programs, and they will sensitize the primary care or the family doctors as well as the Anganwadi workers, because we remember that there might be a large proportion of pediatric care available in the urban spaces, but when it comes to rural spaces, the access to a pediatrician may not be that easy.
Okay, I do have a couple of follow-ups to what you just said, but let me just also bring in our other panelists as well. And Dr. Ravi, let's bring you in. You heard what Dr. Joshi had to say. What is your view?
Thank you for having me on the show, and I completely agree with what Dr. Shashank Joshi said. I think this argument that there is no evidence is utterly foolish, in my opinion. Brazil has lost 2,500 children in the second wave. Every developed nation, especially in the East, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, are all experiencing more number of infections in children. Karnataka data is absolutely crystal clear. From March last year to March 18th this year, there were 143,000 children who got infected during the first wave and little after the first wave. Between March 18th and May 18th, there were 94,000 children who got infected. If this is not increased proportion of infection, I think people should wake up, stop this argument saying that there is no evidence. There is ample evidence. There are meta-analysis published on how children are getting infected, what proportion will develop serious disease. I think let's lay that argument to rest. Let us not have the ostrich syndrome and bury our head in sand and say it is not going to be a problem. It's better to be prepared, as Dr. Joshi very nicely articulated. This is the opportunity. Let us not be caught unawares. Let us not repeat the mistake what happened for the second wave. Many people said, no, we will not have a second wave. I don't think that is the right approach. This is a new virus. It will seek out susceptibles, and children are susceptibles and they do not have vaccination. I'll stop here.
So may I ask you your own view of why this has happened? I mean, overall as well, we've seen much larger number of cases this time around than last time. But is there something which is making children more vulnerable this time?
There are two things. One is last year when it started, lower number of children were found to be positive. There were people who cited some studies that ACE2 receptors are, the density is very less. What Dr. Joshi said of thymus and children handling it better is true. ACE2 receptors, there are some publications. But let us remember, there are some variables that one cannot predict, and that is emergence of new variants. What if a variant comes tomorrow that has more predilection for children? Do we have a guarantee we will not get that? As it is, there is preliminary evidence that 6.17, B.1.6.17.2 is found more in children. We should be actually thinking, expecting the worst, rather than sitting and debating on whether it will affect, it will not affect. This is a golden opportunity to improve our healthcare systems for children. They deserve it. And I think we should now start making plans on whether we are going to open schools continuously, we are going to have interrupted schooling, whether we are going to have training programs for pediatricians, and see that up to taluk levels, we make provision for beds for children. There are so many other things to focus on than sit and say, no, it's not going to affect children. Better be truthful, not to create a scare, but explain to parents, look, this is the situation. It is everybody's responsibility. I think talking the truth is more important than covering up. Over.
Such an important thing that you've just said, Dr. Ravi. Talking truth is more important than covering up, because this will help people prepare. Of course, nobody wants to spread panic right now, but we also want people to be prepared, to be aware. Dr. Naveen Thakkar, we've heard two of the experts out here. Do you believe that we need to specifically prepare our healthcare infrastructure for children for the third wave, or just in the coming months as such?
Thank you, Tanvi. I think we are on this, we are on the same page, but maybe the communication is not going right. When, as Dr. Shashank Joshi said, it's still the children about 10 years of age which we are seeing the serious disease. Still the most of the infection in children are very mild, particularly below 5 years. And these, about 10 years, definitely we have seen, but we don't have any denominator in that absence. It is, and we have seen this, and we now know that this 167.2, which is, very, very transmissible, and practically it affects everyone in the family. So if if the number is so high, we don't have exact data. So children definitely will be affected. As I know data from Maharashtra, I don't want to argue anything, but what I saw from the pediatric task force, that 3 to 4% were children. And definitely the 3 to 4% in absolute number will be too high when you have such a devastating wave. Out of that, some will become serious, some will get pneumonia, some will get misty, and all the severe disease that will all happen, moderate cases. But again, the point here is, and I'm very happy that everybody is talking about children, making the facility available, which is a long, overdue what we can do for our children. But at the same time, we have to see we don't create panic. there is no biological explanation that children, particularly below 10 years of age, will have more serious disease. If you have more cases, there will be more cases in children also, even in this epidemic. So we have to be prepared for the worst, but at the same time, the communication should be very, very clear that it should not create panic. Otherwise, what will happen? Any family member in the family get infected, they immediately call, and particularly it is children, they will say there is no symptom, but we are worried about the children. So we have to be very, very clear that we have to prepare as a whole. And when we are still in the second wave, and if we don't learn now, that we don't take any learning from this, that there will be again a third wave, maybe even more bad, and you will have more people affected, and ultimately children will be affected. So I think we have to have a holistic view of preparing well for the any wave. If it is a pandemic, there will be third, fourth, fifth, if we don't prepare well. And what about the vaccination? What we are talking, we have only 10% people vaccinated for at least one dose, around 3 or 4% vaccinated for the 2 dose. So there is nothing like that it is going to shift immediately. And as of now, there is some evidence that children above 10 years are getting involved, and that's why many countries have started vaccinating that population. But if we come to the vaccination, our priority criteria still has to be same. The way we have gone, only thing we have not been successful in covering that population what we had. But still, the best way to protect children is to focus on the vaccination of the all eligible adults, because they bring the infection to the family.
Okay.
And also prepare the whole system as a whole for everyone. Otherwise, it's not again going to be same if we just try to focus just our attention on the children. Over.
Okay, so I am just looking at the data here, and because we have one expert from Maharashtra task force, the other from Karnataka task force, both of them saying that their state numbers show a completely different picture. But the data that the central government gave us, and I do want to admit that this is data that we managed to get as of April 19th when they shared it. In the first wave and the second wave, the percentage of infections, whether it was 10 to 20 age group, was 8.07% in first wave and 8.5% in the second wave. So is there something that's changed since 20th of April, Dr. Shashank Joshi, or has the data not really been able to capture the overall picture here that you are suggesting?
So Tanvi, let me read out some facts, and that will make it very clear. We have to get by age-wise profile distribution. Up to 10 years, I'm talking of Maharashtra data, pool data of April and May, approximately 3.07%. Pool data between 11 to 20 years of age, 7.07%, which means below 20 years, and that is what Dr. Thakkar was also alluding to, that 7% is a large number, 11 to 20, which was not even 1% in the first wave. And even for the first up to 10 years was not even 1% in the first wave. The 21 to 30 years is 17.9%. This is Maharashtra data, absolutely published data. Then between 31 to 40, 22.34%. Between 41 to 50, 18.07%. Between 51 to 60, 14.08%. Between 61 to 70, 10.03%. And then the whole thing drops down dramatically. You just take that yardstick of that data and compare it of last year. You will clearly notice the difference that the majority of the population affected in this pandemic has 3% below 10 years, 7% between 11 to 20 years, between 21 to 30 years, 17.9%, between 31 to 40, 22.34%, which is the largest number. Then 41 to 50 is 18.07%. You can see the demographic change. So the data is absolutely talking, and it is in public domain. So I don't think there is any two ways about it, that is it a proportionate rise or is it a disproportionate rise? We were alerted of this in the month of April that there was a disproportionate rise, and that is, we go only by science and only by facts. We are not debating them at all. And based on that, we were being prepared. We are not at all here to panic. We never will panic, but we have to have infrastructure ready. And our concern is between 10 to 20, as Dr. Thakkar also rightfully pointed out, but even below 10, we should be prepared. It is important that to be prepared, even if a single child does not develop COVID, we'll be most happy. We want a COVID-free world and we want a COVID-free India. But at the same time, not being prepared, not being alert, not being sensitized is not a correct approach. And that it will not happen because a receptor is not there is also not an appropriate approach to have. It's unlikely to happen. It is less likely to happen, but we will be ready as a way of abundant precaution, maybe a more apt approach to take.
So this is, Tanvi, can I just
So,
add
what are our things? Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
So what he says is right. If you see the Sero survey from December 2020-21, it says 25% Sero prevalence from 10 to 20 years of age. So there is no dispute about 10 years of age. Over.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, fair enough. Let me ask you this question then. What is it that we should be doing in terms of preparation? Dr. Ravi, obviously many of the states are looking at setting up specific pediatric facilities or children COVID centers as well. We'll also have to keep in mind, because these are very small children, they will also need somebody perhaps to stay on with them. So the entire planning will have to be different.
I entirely agree with you that the planning has to start now, and it has to be detailed planning. There are three things in planning that one has to keep in mind. A, about the clinical care management. Are we going to treat all children in the same hospital? If so, both COVID and non-COVID. If so, are we going to segregate areas? B, do we have enough beds? C, to get the human resource ready. Handling children is a different ball game than handling adults. So I think these are from the clinical care perspective. The other perspective is from preventing super spreading events. Educating parents that they can bring the infection home to the child, even if the schools are closed. Trying to talk to children about what are the appropriate behaviors. I'm sure if we can get our communication strategies properly, and believe me, India is very poor in behavior change communication. We either drive people crazy with panic, or we go to the other extreme and we say that, no, everything is fine, you don't have to worry. There is a middle path, and that actually behavior change comes when there is hope given to people. At the same time, it should not be hope that is not baseless, and it should be mixed with responsibility and giving options to people. I think there's plenty of time. 6 months is a long time. Let us stop this argument that children are not important. I just want to add Karnataka data to what Dr. Joshi said about Maharashtra. I told you between last March and this March, 143,000 cases. From this March to this May, that is March, April, May, that is in 2 months, we have had 93,000 cases. 1/3 of them, 28,000 of them, were children above 10 years of age. There is enough data. I don't know why we are going back and debating on are children at more risk. They are at more risk. Settle that argument. Go ahead with focusing on preventive strategies, preventing super spreading events, getting infrastructure ready, both in terms of beds, human resource, and training of doctors and pediatricians. Over.
Okay, I wanted to ask one more question to you first, Dr. Joshi, and then maybe Dr. Naveen Thakkar can also come in on this, because Maharashtra has, we understand, recommended flu shots for children. Now, can you help us understand the rationale behind that? How will it help?
So let me go on record on clarification. Maharashtra has not recommended flu shots. Only thing Maharashtra Task Force has recommended,
okay,
and the politicians are in agreement, is that if there has been any disruption to the universal immunization program in the last year, in the first wave, or in this year in this wave, please complete it. and please take immunizations on time, both which are in the universal immunization schedule as well as those recommended by Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Because ensuring that the BCG vaccine, the polio vaccine, the MMR vaccine, the flu shots, all of them should be taken and there should not be a disruption. Due to COVID, what has happened is both last year and this year, due to restrictions in place, there has been a disruption to the immunization schedule and the chain. And that should not be disrupted. And therefore, there has been a request made by the Maharashtra Task Force. And they have also requested our pediatric colleagues, led ably by Dr. Suhas Prabhu and his group from the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, that please ensure that the vaccination process, which is likely to be disrupted either last year or this year, is fully completed, so that at least there is some non-specific immunity and at least there is immunization to the standard diseases which have been recommended by the universal immunization schedule by the government of India as well as their academy.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That was extremely important for everybody to know, because this information has been going around so much. Dr. Thakkar, what else can parents do? We obviously don't want them to panic right now, but few things that they need to watch out for, and not just for 1 month or 2 months. Obviously, we are talking about a longer time period here.
So, what parents can do and what needs to be done, I will just cover very shortly that there are 3 types of cases: mild, moderate, severe, and then we have say this post-COVID syndrome. So for when mild cases at present are also happening, and we should have fewer clinics for that. I think the task force led by Suhas Prabhu has recommended that, which should take care also by teleconsultation to large number of people, these mild cases. Otherwise, that will be on burden on the say stress on the health system if all those people goes to the hospital and get into the other issues. Second is the moderate. For that COVID beds needs to be, COVID ward needs to be created, and finally for the say severe cases you need ICU and ventilator. But that requirement is already calculated, not very high. But it is, I am again stressing, it is very, very important that parents should be made aware about the signs and symptom of COVID and what they need to do in case of mild COVID. That's the most important thing, because I have seen they are wandering here and there for a small, very little information, which if they don't get, they will go to the hospital. And on the other side, state should also prepare that they get that information. There are excellent model. Just now I am in Uttar Pradesh, and here there is a good model of home care where they make WhatsApp group and doctors reply and trace, and we get, you get a 3 or 4 times call in a day. So that system has to be developed to load the burden on the health system. Second thing is that parents need to understand that they have to take care of themselves. Nobody, it is, if they don't take care of themselves, the person who are going out for work and brings an infection home, this 167.2 is so infectious. If it comes to your home, everybody is infected, and in this way also, even the 9 months or 10 months, my grandchild is 9 months, and we all of us got infected, and because we were vaccinated, so we didn't have very mild, and he was so young, so it was mild. But everybody gets infected, so you take care of yourself. Third thing is that don't go for unproven things and don't overdo it. Avoid medicine without. I have seen now people are giving medicine, just giving the half dose and giving all sorts of medicine which has no role. So don't, the adult we may have somehow get away with that. Children, it may be disastrous. So don't do that. The self-medication, mild COVID infection, and also look for the red flag sign. All these things needs to be conveyed. And finally, mental health. It is very, very important that we take care of the mental health, which is going to be there an issue for everyone, including children. Over.
Oh yes, absolutely, and which is why we also keep having regular conversations about it. I think as a country and as a society and governments really need to start addressing this aspect of the pandemic and the fallout of the pandemic on this aspect as well. Thank you so much to all of the panelists for joining us right now. So there you go. All experts saying that yes, a larger proportion of children did get infected, and we cannot take it for granted that they won't be vulnerable the next time around. So it isn't fair to say that there is no evidence to say that the third wave could be a big concern for them. We must prepare now. We must arm ourselves with information now. We must keep our healthcare infrastructure ready now. Make a plan now and get ready for what may happen in the next wave as it hits us. Suffice to say, if this is the situation right now, even the states and the center will have to take a very, very conscious decision when it comes to holding any kind of board exams as well, or even reopening schools. Can they really afford to do that for many, many months from here on? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.